Good morning on this Sunday, May 23rd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Atlanta's violent crime wave continues to frustrate city and state officials. Also, Georgia Republicans are bragging about the heavy turnout and new faces at their district meetings as they look ahead to 2022. And parents, students, educators, and even the governor weigh in on critical race theory. Phil and Kathy are here along with BJ Pack, and Bobby Capel is here filling in for Theron. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Enough is enough when it comes to Atlanta's crime wave. That's the sentiment from Atlanta City Hall to the Fulton County District Attorney to Georgia's Speaker of the House.
It's important that we recognize that the people who live in this city are also Georgians. They're tax-paying Georgians. They're Georgia employees. They're Georgia families, and they're entitled to protection. And if the city's not going to do it, then we've got to find ways that we can do it.
After another violent week in the city of Atlanta, House Speaker David Ralston says it's time for the state to step in and help Atlanta get the crime under control. Murders are up 50% compared to the same time last year. In this past week, more than a dozen separate shootings, several of them deadly. Atlanta police putting out a statement saying, quote, "Gun violence isn't a political issue. It is not a Second Amendment issue, and it's not a race issue. It is people making terrible decisions with guns, poor anger management, and it is a profound carelessness and lack of regard for human life issue."
I would hope that the city would cooperate. I would hope that the city would recognize that this is a problem and that we want to be good allies and partners in this fight. We're not trying to come in and take over. This is something that I wish we didn't have to be having this discussion about. But until we get a handle on this situation, I don't think we have any alternative.
Earlier this year, House Speaker David Ralston announced his Public Safety Committee will begin a series of hearings on the crime wave. Those hearings will begin in the next few weeks. Phil, this is a common topic on the Georgia Gang. We have committees meeting at the state capitol and at City Hall, but what can be done now?
Well, there's several action steps that could be taken, and it's sad to say that Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is just clueless and continues to stick with stupid policies, such as not even negotiating properly with Fulton County to have more jail bed space. We've got a city jail that's virtually empty thanks to her. And Sheriff Pat Labatt of Fulton County, I just met with him the other day. He would like to see, obviously, like most people would, the jail used. Yes, we're in the midst of a rising violent crime wave. And I talked to some police just this week in Atlanta. Up to a dozen to 14 officers are leaving every month. We can't continue to have this hemorrhaging. I think that the city is going to have to look at some incentives to at least try to hold the line or get more people in. How about, I mentioned last week, how about signing bonuses for new recruits? How about rent-free, 6 months rent-free when you're in the police academy? Things like that. They need to be holding the line on police, and also the mayor needs to declare that there will absolutely be due process whenever there's a shooting case involving an officer.
Kathy, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis took to social media this week saying she wanted to say something unpopular, that our police need help, that people should be able to go to a pool party, a club, shopping without fear of being killed. How much of this do you think is because of a police shortage that Phil alluded to?
Well, there could be a bit of a shortage, but I'm not sure that is the entire solution to the situation. And listening to Speaker Ralston's comments were really interesting to me. And what I would hope that the General Assembly would do as they contemplate helping is to consider our gun laws, consider funding for mental health, consider funding for education and involvement in young people's lives. There's lots of things on the General Assembly side that may not look like straight up, criminal justice involvement or whatever you want to call it, that they could do to be helpful. Getting the guns out of hands of kids would be enormously helpful. And right now we've got, gun laws that don't really exist, right? Almost anybody can get a gun, carry a gun. have any kind of gun. And so it'd be really helpful if they could find a way to match their beliefs with, just getting the guns out of the hands of kids.
BJ, I'd like you to respond to Kathy's comments, but also as a former U.S. attorney, how much of this is a gang issue? We've had gangs in Metro Atlanta for years, but what do you think is happening and what can be done, now that the situation is so bad?
Sure. First of all, I think what Kathy suggests is good, but that's not going to solve the crime wave, and people are living in fear right now. That might be a long-term solution. So you have to understand that gun laws are already strong. We have federal gun laws and we have local gun laws, felon possession, illegal possession of firearms. So the issue really is illegal guns, right? Guns on the street. So you need to prosecute people for violating the laws that are existing today. When I was U.S. Attorney, we noticed that there are two themes that are going on. In order to reduce violent crime in the city, in the region, is to enforce the gun laws. You take the trigger pullers off the street, you're not going to get murders and you're not going to get violent crimes, innocent bystanders getting shot. The second is the Mayor Bottoms' administration decided to go a different way by dismantling the gang unit in the APD and also the intelligence side of APD. Matter of fact, to reverse course, now they're rebuilding that intelligence course. And a lot of the violent crime in the city are not just from the city of Atlanta, they're from the region. So you have to take a regional approach. If you look at what Governor Kemp and the federal government's been doing, they've worked through the task force, with a multi-jurisdictional task force, both on the federal side. What they need to do is reinvigorate that by leveraging the resources everyone has and intelligence to enforce the laws that exist today. That's the only way you're going to get violent crime down.
Wow, lots of good information there. Bobby, weigh in here. BJ talks about illegal guns, but also this dismantling of the gang unit at APD.
Well, I think we have to start with acknowledging the fact that Atlanta does have a major crime problem now, and I think the statistics bear it out in the last few weeks. You mentioned District Attorney Fani Willis speaking on this. She called it unacceptable, and I think she's right. We need to get police the help that they need right now, and at the same time, we need to do some of the things that Kathy discussed, which is take a long view of this and sit down with community leaders, both at the state legislature and at the city, and make decisions to look forward on how we can best solve this problem from the ground up. This is something that also does have to be addressed right now, though. People are scared. People are concerned in their neighborhoods right now, and we need to take some immediate action right now to stem the tide of violence in Atlanta, and then at the same time be looking at solutions that can help the city going forward.
Phil, now Atlanta City Council is getting in on the committee action. They want to create a public safety commission that will provide recommendations. I really think people are getting sick of all of these committees, commissions, and they want action. Just like Bobby said, they want action now.
Absolutely. The time for talking is over. In fact, Kathy and I agreed last week that we already have the action steps that are needed to be taken. We have District Attorney Fani Willis, who is willing to get very aggressive with gangs, to BJ's point, and step up the prosecutions. You've got, I mentioned Fulton County Sheriff Pat Labatt. He's sending in his deputies into the city of Atlanta to try to help the understaffed Atlanta police force. I talked about the jail earlier. I don't hear Kathy and Bobby talking about the jail. Let's fill the jail up. You've got a revolving door of criminals in the city of Atlanta. And of course, BJ makes some excellent points. If Mayor Bottoms would get in and with the team effort here and have some joint arrests and swift prosecutions.
Kathy, we know that Mayor Bottoms isn't running again, but she's in office until January. Is it going to take a change in leadership to get a hold of the crime wave? Former Mayor Kasim Reed says if he were to run and become mayor again, he could turn it around in his first 180 days in office.
Well, I'll just let him speak for himself on that. But I do think if Mayor Bottoms doesn't show any more tendency to show up and make decisions, then I think we will have to wait till the next mayor. But I do want to say something about this city council commission. We have committees on city council that need to make decisions and do work. We don't need to keep inviting citizens in to take their time to do the work that those committees should do. There's a public safety committee that already exists. They could be bringing in Fani Willis, Pat Labatt, Keith Gamage, other people who have some insight and professionalism, the police chief, around public safety issues, and ask them what they need to do their jobs efficiently and aggressively, as well as community leaders who are on the other side of the criminal justice equation and want to make sure that we're not ruining people's lives who don't need to be caught up in it. And then that committee should come out with a series of policy recommendations that are either sent to the mayor for her to adopt if that's her job, or for the council to adopt as official policies of the city, which would then force her hand.
All good points, everybody. We'll keep following this unfortunate story. Thank you. Coming up, Georgia's GOP held statewide meetings, and there were lots of newcomers. We'll discuss what that means in this now blue state.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Lots of energy and new faces at Republican meetings held across Georgia. The AJC reported on an after-action report of the 2020 election, which put a lot of the blame on Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. BJ, looking ahead to 2022, how much will former President Trump and his loss factor in? Also, is it smart for Republicans to look back on the 2020 election, or should they focus on other issues?
Well, I think you have to do both. President Trump still looms large in GOP politics, as you see by the split in several of the district conventions. So you have to make sure that the people who are still very loyal to the president and who believe that the election was stolen, that they are brought into the fold. But I do think that the message needs to be that we need to look forward. We need to look at new leaders. We need to look at going back to the conservative principles that define the GOP. And so I think it's going to be very, very tough to do that because I believe the party is a little bit fractured right now. But what we do know is it takes a little bit of time, maybe 1 or 2 cycles, to get back to normal, just like what Ronald Reagan did. And I think that GOP, just looking at the energized base and the new people coming to the conventions, I think we have a very good shot of taking at least one house in the Congress.
Bobby, what do you think about, Republicans calling this a renewed, energized base?
I think it's a little bit of wishful thinking. People have been trying to equate this to when Donald Trump got elected, and then on the left, Democrats getting excited to come out and vote and participate in the process. I think there's a big key component that in that comparison that's missing, which is polling data. The polling data in 2017 showed a big problem for Republicans, and then it was also reflected in the 2018 midterm elections when Democrats retook the House of Representatives. What you're seeing right now here in Georgia, although there may be a few more people at these meetings, you are not seeing the polling lining up with that as well. You do not see problems for Joe Biden in Georgia, for example. Here, his approval rating's over 50% in the latest polling. You do not see problems in polling for John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock, Senator Warnock, who are now in the Senate and won in January. They are both in the 50% plus range. So when you start to see those numbers dip below 50% and you combine that with increase in turnout at these county meetings, et cetera, then I think you could see a problem for Democrats. But I just don't see it right now. And if we're going to read the tea leaves, let's read them all.
Phil, Governor Brian Kemp gave us a hint of what's to come in his re-election campaign, telling the AJC the Democrats are good at nationalizing races, and this time he'll turn the tables. He'll focus on the fact that he reopened Georgia and kept the economy strong here.
I think that's the right direction for Governor Kemp to go, and I have to push back on Bobby. Of course, he doesn't go to any GOP meetings. I've been going to them ever since I was in college, and I've never seen such energy in the new people that are coming in. And just take Fulton County, for example, Georgia's most populous county. When I went to their convention, I made a point to talk to the new people I'd never seen before. People of different races, different backgrounds, and they all said they were Trumpers and they are conservatives. And I said, well, the leadership of the party currently are Trumpers and conservatives. And they said, that's fine. We just want our own people elected. So it's a family, and you have these divisions. But I'm very optimistic. The GOP vote was down during the runoff, but I think that vote is going to come back. Why? Because there's going to be a huge backlash. I see it already in Atlanta and in Georgia against the Biden overreach, the lack of support for law and order and public safety, high taxes, big spending, the attack on free speech, the attack on the right to keep and bear arms. That's going to help the center-right politically in Georgia. And I don't think it's a blue state. I think it's a purple state. I think it's very competitive.
It is for sure. Kathy, I want to switch gears because Georgia Republicans in the U.S. House opposed the resolution that ultimately condemned the Atlanta spa shootings. Democrat Carolyn Bordeaux called the resolution a step in the right direction. Were you surprised that Georgia Republicans voted against this?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm surprised, but here's what I think people need to know about this bill. This bill builds on the hate crimes legislation we already have in Congress by encouraging police departments to do training, by making sure that the way that police departments report hate crimes into the federal government is streamlined and that reporting takes place. Because right now there are a lot of jurisdictions, probably more jurisdictions than not, that don't report hate crimes, and part of it's because they don't really understand what they are. But they're an incredibly important crime fighting tool. It adds to the, kind of the menu that we can use to figure out what's going on in our communities. BJ mentioned earlier the Atlanta Police Department Intelligence Unit. It's that kind of information that helps police and communities understand what's going on. And so for that, I think Republicans really missed a chance to add to a public safety menu, as I said, that's really important to everybody.
BJ, I've got about 30 seconds if you want to weigh in here.
Sure. The resolution does really nothing. It politicizes an issue that need not be politicized. So I don't think the resolution did anything. Now, to Kathy's point, the hate crimes bill that was bipartisan, that was signed into law, does encourage and step in the right direction, is to encourage tracking of hate crimes and additional funding for training for local police. So that's in the right step. But the resolution itself is meaningless in my view.
All right, we'll leave it there, everybody. Thank you. Coming up, the debate heats up over teaching critical race theory. Stay tuned.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Republicans are weighing in over the teaching of critical race theory in public schools. School boards held meetings in Forsyth and Cherokee counties this week where supporters and opponents discussed the issue. First off, Bobby, I want to know, how would you define critical race theory?
Well, that's a great question, and I think if you ask 99% of Americans, they wouldn't have a clue on where to start on that. It's an insider buzz term for culture wars on the right now, and I have to say, candidly, I don't want to take lectures on the danger of teaching children certain lessons from a party that is right now standing in support of people who seized the Capitol and tried to overthrow a Democratic election on January 6th. Did you know that every member of the Georgia delegation of the House of Representatives this week voted to not move forward with a commission to look at what happened on January 6th in the insurrection? So I find it very right for some of these folks who are talking about this now to discuss how and what we're teaching our children. Are we teaching our children that it's okay if you lose to seize power, that it's not okay to love this wonderful country and the democracy that we've become over the years, and instead we want to turn this place into a banana republic? I just think it's ridiculous.
Phil, I know you want to weigh in here. Governor Kemp wrote a letter to the State Board of Education urging it to take steps to make sure critical race theory and, quote, dangerous ideology does not take root in our state standards and curriculum.
I'm glad the governor did that. He needs to go a step further and maybe issue an executive order banning it. The state school board ought to ban it. The General Assembly ought to do a law in January that bans it. What is it? Bobby whitewashed it. I've actually read the curriculum, and it's warped. It's dangerous. We don't need any more division. It teaches basically that America was founded by evil whites and that it's an oppressive system, that capitalism is no good, and it twists all of our civics and history that we've been taught, and it magnifies the flaws. I mean, it's a great country that has evolved. Yes, it is a constitutional republic. Think of the progress we've made just since the 1960s when it comes to everyone truly is equal in the eyes of God and under the law. And this would dynamite it.
All right, I want to move on to another topic. Let's talk about the city of Stonecrest, where a third-party audit shows more than half of the $200,000 in purchases did not have any receipts. Only 2 out of the 10 people who had them were authorized to have a P card. BJ, this is something that is not new to city, county governments.
I don't understand why cities and state governments still have P cards. It's absolutely unnecessary because the procurement process is so fast now. And at the same time, I've had P cards, government cards. I never carried it when I was in government because I really didn't need to. There was nothing so urgent that I needed to use a credit card to purchase something on behalf of the city. So it's ripe for abuse. This is yet another story of that. During my tenure as U.S. Attorney, we prosecuted many, many government officials for abusing their P cards. And what's being reported doesn't look very good for the people involved.
Yeah, it's great for investigative journalists, I'll tell you that. Well, we learned this week the GBI is investigating the Gwinnett County Sheriff for possible extortion. 4 separate lawsuits claim Sheriff Kibo Taylor shut down bail bond companies because they wouldn't donate to his campaign. According to Fox 5's I-Team reporter Randy Travis, the Sheriff Taylor denies any wrongdoing and earlier called this a political stunt. Kathy, in one of those lawsuits, there was video of Taylor allegedly saying that if folks don't support me, I'm not going to let them bond here. Your thoughts on this investigation?
Well, we're going to have to see where the investigation leads on how this all shakes out, but it doesn't look very good for the sheriff, and I think it's a warning to people who run for office to be very careful about how you encourage people to support you and the things that you say, can and will be used against you later. And so I think what we're seeing with this sheriff is, a pretty aggressive way of campaigning and looks like a pretty non-transparent way of deciding who gets to bond people out in the county, and that needs to be addressed one way or the other.
Phil, I have about 20 seconds if you want to comment.
Well, it looks like the new sheriff of Gwinnett County is a bully, and he's been in law enforcement before. He should know right from wrong and what's legal and illegal, and these are serious allegations, and I think he's in serious trouble.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll leave it there. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Well, first, congratulations to all of the finalists for Georgia's Pre-K Teachers of the Year. A shout out to Reg Griffin from the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning, who says the winners will be announced in September, and he's a devoted fan of this show. Thanks, Reg. BJ, over to you first.
Yeah, for my winner this week, I want to congratulate Ralph Puckett Jr. The Biden administration announced this week that he's going to be receiving the Medal of Honor. Colonel Puckett was actually an Army Ranger who fought in the Korean War, and as a Korean American, his heroism led directly to me being able to have the opportunities I have today. So congratulations to Colonel Puckett. And the losers of the week, I want to say that it's the cyber criminals, dark side, who were responsible for the hacking of Colonial Pipeline, and they extorted money out of them. Cyber criminals are wreaking havoc all over the world, so they're my loser of the week.
All right, Kathy, over to you.
Oh gosh, so many winners. The Biden administration for closing the ICE facility down in Irwin County. We all recall the stories of what happened to the female detainees down there, and it's time to get people out of there. Fani Willis for saying what needs to be said over and over again. She's just an outstanding public servant, and I'm excited about her. And a frequent watcher, Sharon Sims, her daughter Kia, told me she watches every week. Kia is outstanding. She's a wonderful daughter, and I just want to thank Sharon for giving her to the world.
Well, thanks, Sharon and Kia. We loved hearing from some of our viewers, some of them. Bobby, over to you.
Yes, I'll start with the loser of the week for me is the GOP Sedition Caucus from Georgia. I mentioned it earlier. The fact that these members of Congress stood on the House floor and wouldn't move forward with a bipartisan commission to investigate the attempted coup on our government that happened in their own workplace, to me, is unconscionable. My winner of the week, excuse me, much more lighthearted, and that is my son, who is 5 years old and lost his first tooth last night. I am so proud of him and the boy he's becoming, and we got a visit from the Tooth Fairy this morning.
Okay, I have to ask, what is the going rate nowadays for the Tooth Fairy? Because there's a lot of debate that we could talk about here.
Well, there was a lot of debate about that, and it turns out the Tooth Fairy left $10 for his first tooth, but here $2 is coming for teeth after.
Inflation's here.
Inflation, right?
For sure.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to pull one of my teeth.
All right, Phil, we've got about a minute left.
Okay, that indeed is Biden-induced inflation, and it's shocking. But anyhow, I have to say that a loser is Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. idea and plan, and I hope it's defeated by City Council, to try to destroy single-family zoning in the city of Atlanta. This is a trend that's going on around the country, pushed by the political left. California and Oregon, shockingly, have banned single-family homes where you can come in and put in duplexes or triplexes, and it's going to destroy a lot of neighborhoods. That's the big loser.
All right, everybody, and I will say a happy congratulations to all of the 2021 graduates out there. What a year to graduate from high school, from college. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you all for joining us this week. Make it a good one, and we will see you back here next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.